Voice of the Cage.
We have reached the main event of the evening.
This is Voice of the Cage Radio with Patrick Stanger. Fighters, trainers, promoters, events, rumors. If it has to do with MMA, we're talking about it.
Hey, this is Junior Dos Santos, and you listen Voice of the Cage with Patrick Stanger.
Hey, this is Chuck Liddell, and you listen to Voice of the Cage, Patrick Stanger. You don't know, you should know. This is Chael Sonnen, and you're listening to Voice of the Cage with the one and only Patrick Stanger.
On the phone right now is the voice of the UFC. He is Mike Goldberg, and of course you know him as the UFC play-by-play commentator who sits alongside Joe Rogan. How you doing, Mike?
I'm good, Patrick. How are you?
Great. Well, it's good to have an actual another broadcaster on the phone. Hey, real quick, man, happy birthday to you. I see your birthday's next week.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you. I'm going to be, I believe, 47. I'm starting to get mixed up, and I promise you I'm not doing it on purpose. I really am starting to get mixed up.
You start to lose track.
But for my birthday, I'm going down... the Black Eyed Peas are one of my favorite bands, and it sounds like they're going to take a little break. And they have a show in Miami on the 23rd, so that's my birthday present to myself. I'm going to go and hang with the Peas. Taboo is a real big UFC fan. He's a huge Bruce Lee guy. And so just off the record, that's my little birthday present. But thank you for noticing.
Absolutely, man. You have a good time. Now, I mean, I think this is the fourth UFC fight in a row. We got another one coming up here. Yeah, fourth in a row.
Fourth, and then it would be 5 and 6 weeks because then we've got the Ultimate Fighter finals, which is cool because Mayhem and Bisping are going to fight on that card. And then we go to TO, and we got some dudes named John somebody fighting there. So it just gets better and better all the time.
Yeah, you know, I'm curious. Now, you got your start in hockey.
Right.
Now, you did commentating for the Red Wings?
Well, I got my start just like all of us in, high school swimming and diving, but I started to get my good breaks in the National Hockey League, that's for sure.
Gotcha. And did you ever work in radio or anything like that, or how did you actually start commentating?
I actually used to work for Fox Sports Radio. I did radio in the mornings. When I was in Sarasota, Florida, as a sportscaster on the 6 and 11, one of the things I did was every morning I would do the radio reports with a couple named Ken and Daria Dolan. And if people, watch CNN Money or anything like that, they're money people, but they had this local show in Sarasota. So I used to wake up and do that. And then when I started with Fox Sports Net nationally with college football, they said, it's a natural transition to put you on Fox Sports Radio. So I did the NFL show on Fox Sports Radio on Sundays with Jim Mora Sr., with, Big Jim Mora, playoffs, and Eric Kramer and the guys, and worked at Fox Sports Radio. And I'll tell you what you guys do, Patrick, is an art, man, because I feel like I've got to keep up on everything. But, man, the way that you guys keep up on sports and keep your energy up and do it for hours a day, I have a ton of respect. I had a ton of fun doing it, but I'll tell you what, prepping for a 3-hour or 4-hour window on Fox Sports Radio was one of the most difficult things I did. And in a way, maybe different than what you do, Patrick, because I was just doing the weekends. And so you have a tendency to maybe sit back and forget what happened on a Tuesday. But when Saturday rolls around and you got to be on the air nationally, you go, you know what, I got to read back up on what happened Tuesday because some caller is going to want to know what I think about that moment, right?
Yeah, right, absolutely. I just do a straight MMA show, and there's so much information to keep up with doing that. You do several fights in one night. I don't know, about 6 hours long, would you say an average fight is?
Well, we had, that's the thing on Fox the other night, bud. We had 10 fights.
Right, wow.
Joe and I called 10 fights, and kind of changed gears, took a deep breath when we did the big one on Fox. But if people know me and the way that I try to approach it, that first prelim of the night meant nothing less than the heavyweight fight to me, because those two young men worked really hard to make it to the UFC, so they deserve the same amount of prep and enthusiasm of me calling, both Joe and I calling that fight, as Junior Dos Santos and Cain Velasquez did on Fox.
Let me ask you, what happens when you got to go to the bathroom?
I go a lot, and people do shots. Where and how that started, I don't know, but I happen to work with a comedian who thought it was pretty funny. We drink a little bit of Zions and Red Bull, but just like anything else, I stay really hydrated, and we're in a pay-per-view format, so there's no natural commercials. There's no bathroom breaks. There's no time to go to the bathroom. There's no halftime.
Right.
So what I do is usually what'll happen is I'll get us into what's the combo feature, and that'll play. That's already voiced. And then there's 2 walk-ins, and Joe can handle a walk-in on his own talking about the fighter. And I'll dart to the bathroom, I'll go, and I'll get back, and most of the time I'll miss the first walk-in. Joe will kind of look at me and smile, and then we'll get into it. But now Joe has this thing where he Twitters every time I go to the bathroom, and fans around the world are supposed to do a shot every time I go to the bathroom in a pay-per-view. And I'm thinking, you know what? I'm going to just start messing with people, and I'm just going to get everybody hammered. I'm not going to go, and I'm going to look at Joe, and I'm going to go, let's Twitter again. Let's Twitter again. And so I think that's what I'm going to do. And it was funny. There was a couple shows ago in Denver, and I would run the same way to go to the bathroom, and there was this dude, and he had a beer in the front row. And every time I went by, he kind of smiled at me, and he looked at me like, are you going to the bathroom? I'd give him a thumbs up, and he'd take a little sip of his beer. And by the end of the night, it was kind of humorous that we actually lived the Goldberg Goes to the Bathroom game live, from the Mile High City. It was kind of funny.
This is good stuff. This is what you don't normally hear about,
Well, and this is what you dream of when you're a kid, right, Patrick?
Oh, absolutely.
People will actually care when you go to the bathroom.
You guys have the best seat in the house. Have you ever just wanted to sit back and just watch the fight? Instead of having to talk about it. I mean, that's got to be great too, because you're hanging out with your buddy Joe Rogan. You guys have been doing this forever. But are you ever taken back by what's happening, what you're seeing?
Well, yes. The answer is yes. And I always say when I have the most fun is when the fights start, because up until then, it's just like you and your show. It's all prep. It's all getting the commercials together. It's all format meetings and voicing different things. And so, yeah, absolutely, I wish I could. And the first time I did it was a WEC fight. My buddy Alex Karalexis fought. Jens Pulver fought that night. And I went as a fan to a WEC at the Hard Rock, and I was at the bar most of the time. And I was with my wife and had a couple of vodka Red Bulls. And then all of a sudden, I looked at Kim and I go, wow, no wonder this is so fun. Now I know why you like to come to every fight. I had an absolute blast. And the coolest experience that I've had as a fan of mixed martial arts was the last ever WEC was in Glendale, Arizona, and I live in Phoenix. So I went as a fan, and I got to see the Showtime kick right up close, right in the first row, sitting right in between the Pettis family and the Henderson family.
Ooh. Sitting
there with my wife, seeing what was one of the greatest fights with that great highlight reel kick that won the fight for Pettis. I got to watch the last ever WEC as a fan in the front row, and I was sitting right next to Cain Velasquez taking it all in. And, yeah, it's an absolute joy to be able to do that, but I wouldn't want to get in a position in life where that's all I was able to do. I kind of like my job, so I don't mind calling the fights either, that's for sure.
I got to wrap this up so Ryan doesn't kick my butt, but real fast I want to ask you about the new DVD that's coming out, Ultimate Fighting Collection. I've been seeing a lot of advertisements for that. Are you hosting that?
Well, you know what? I guess I am, because it's 170 fights, and Joe and I called each one of the 170 fights. So in that regard, yes, I absolutely am. It's 170 fights, 50 hours, over 20 discs, classic matchups. It's available at Best Buy now. It's going to be available all around at all the other places at December 6th. But, I mean, it's like somebody once said, it's the greatest UFC box set ever, and I was there to witness them all. And if you look at the great fights from Silva Sonnen, where you thought we were going to have a new champion, to Frankie Edgar beating BJ Penn a second at a time, Lesnar working his way through Carwin but getting beaten by Velasquez, Anderson Silva's kick on Vitor Belfort, John Jones becoming the youngest champion in UFC history, plus hours and hours of unseen footage and backstage inside information that you haven't seen on any previous releases. They've done a nice job with it. And like you said, it's 50 hours of 170 fights, 12-month period of UFC history with all the stories, all the build-up, and it's in a cool box set that if you give it to one of your buddies, it's going to be his favorite gift. But I got news for you. If you go to the store, Patrick, and you buy one, and you're like, I'm going to give this to Joey for Christmas, Joey isn't going to get it for Christmas. Because once you see it, you're not going to give it to him. So go and buy two, because you're going to want to keep one of them, that's for sure.
Absolutely will. Can't wait to check it out. And it was good to have you on the phone today. Mike Goldberg, the UFC commentator.
Anytime, buddy. Look forward to talking to you again.
Thanks for listening to Voice of the Cage Radio. Email questions, inquiries, and other business to info@voiceofthecage.com. Facebook search Voice of the Cage and like to get the latest Voice of the Cage radio show. To book Patrick Stanger at your next fight promotion, visit voiceofthecage.com.